Alright, hey guys, how's it going? Hopefully everyone's still doing well, everyone's healthy and safe and making the best of this situation. Alright, so we got our watercolor mountainscape and we're going to keep adding to it. And we're just going to make it better and better and better as we go along. So last week we did all this, and today we are going to finish the ponds areas, the trees. We're going to add some more to the sky, and then we're going to go over it with some other mediums like water or colored pencils. All right, so let me see. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to grab our water, and if you're using colored pencils, you're just going to do a light blue. We want to add some blue to the water, and we want to make the water look a little blue, just really light. And we can kind of go into our pond, or our, what's it called, island, our island there. Just adding a little bit of blue, like that. I know it's hard to see on there. I'll make it a little darker so you guys can see it a little better. I don't know why the iPad that I'm using is not. But yeah, you want it to just be a little darker, which still you can't really see. I'll make it a little darker. You guys see that? A little bit, okay. But essentially what you're doing is adding blue. Kind of like a dark blue to the water, just to make it look more like water and make it look a little darker, because we want it to be. I'll make it even darker on my screen so you guys can see. And I'm going over my island. It's still light, but it's darker than the white of the paper. Okay. All right, so now what we're gonna do is, if you're using watercolor, I'm actually gonna make this a little darker too. This reflection, we want it to be a little darker. Okay. So now what we want to do is wait a little bit for this to dry, because you don't want to go over. Actually, I can just dab this area a little bit with my paper towel. There we go. Okay, and then I'm gonna dab that area so I get rid of some of the water, and then I'm gonna go over it with some dark brown and purple. And you guys can, like, you don't have to stick with the exact same colors that I'm using. This is just kind of like what I'm doing, but that's the thing. You guys can experiment with whatever colors you want. I don't want to stifle you guys. So I'm getting kind of like a purplish brown. And I'm going to, this is going to be the darkest thing on here. I'm just going to go over my design like this. And then I'm going to use the same kind of color, just a little bit lighter. Well, actually a lot lighter. And make a lighter version of this island, because I want two islands right there. But it doesn't look like, we also want, this is a little tricky, we're gonna wait for that to dry first. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get, if you're using a watercolor, you're gonna get mostly paint. So you want a really dry brush. So you want to get mostly paint. You don't want that much water now. Now we want a lot of paint, no water, because we're going to do something really dark on top. And I'm gonna get another brownish purple. And now I'm gonna add the tree. So I kind of see where my pencil is already, where I drew it in. So I'm gonna try and follow that, but you can kind of just make it however you want. So I'm just gonna do little touches with my brush like that. Little thin branches, and they don't have to connect. It actually might look a little better if they don't connect, like that. So I'm just gonna kind of like do these little trees. I'm gonna do a big tree that goes kind of into the sky like that. And then I'm gonna do a smaller tree right here. And if I'm going too fast, go ahead and pause the video. But there's no rule right here, you know what I mean? There's no rule for this. You just kind of want to I'm just kind of using the side of the brush, and it gives it this cool effect. You kind of just want to mess around with it a little bit. And actually, I could go a little darker, so I'm gonna go a little darker. Go a little darker. Uh-oh. Alright, like this. Cool. And I'm gonna do a tiny one right here. Or maybe like another tiny one right there. Cool. So that looks pretty good. And then I'm gonna take the same kind of thing, but again, we want it to be a little lighter now because we're gonna do the one that's further away. So I'm gonna do a smaller tree because it's further away. I'm gonna do smaller little trees like that. Bob Ross makes happy trees, but these are kind of sad because they're kind of dying. But we're gonna put some leaves on them. All right, and then what you want to do is grab another dry, dark, like we did for the branches. We're gonna add shadow of this island here, like that. And again, if I'm going too fast, which I probably am, go ahead and pause the video. So I want to add this shadow underneath. So got the pond right there, shadow. Cool. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go into the sky a little bit. So I think the sky, this is the time, now that we have everything established, now we can go and see what needs to be added. So I think the sky is a little too dark, or it's a little too light. So I'm gonna go ahead and make it a little darker. A little bit, not too much. So I'm gonna get a lot of water and push this paint all the way around. And I know it's hard to see on the iPad, but on the video, but I'm not going too dark, but I'm going a little darker. And I'll post a picture of the project complete so you guys can have a reference. Perfect. So that looks a lot better. And then to blend the edges, just grab water. Only water, just water, no paint. And then you just blend the edges. And if you're using colored pencils, again, you're just gonna do the same thing, but you're gonna just press harder here with the colored pencil and then scrape the paper just barely, just to make it really light. All right, it's looking pretty good, I think. So now what do we want to do? Now, what we want to do is I want to add some leaves to the trees here. Just tiny little leaves every here, like just a little bit here and there. So I'm gonna get some purple, some brighter purple. Now this is where you can just get a little brighter with the colors, make them a little more saturated. I'm gonna get some bright purple, and I'm gonna do just little tiny leaves like that. I'm gonna pick little areas where I want the leaves to be. I'm just gonna dab with the brush like that. There we go, those looking pretty good. And if you're using colored pencils, you're just gonna draw these little shapes in. So I'm not being really specific with the shapes, I'm just kind of putting my brush on there and letting the brush do a lot of the interesting work. Because the brush actually will surprise you, you know, it'll just make a lot of interesting shapes. More interesting than I could design, you know what I mean? So that looks pretty good. All right, cool. And then I'm gonna do the same thing, but lighter down here. So just a little lighter. And a little thinner, a little smaller. You guys see that? Hopefully. So a little lighter, darker. It's looking pretty good. What we need is a little reflection of the... Actually, let me move this a little bit so you guys can see. Oops. So what we want now is to add the reflection of the, and you guys can use smaller brushes. I'm using the same size brush, but it doesn't really matter if you can get the job done with it. I'm gonna add the reflection of the branches. So I'm gonna get a really light brown, and I'm gonna follow this branch and go down here and put in the light effect right there. I'm just gonna try and eyeball it. Follow this branch, go down to the water, add like that. And then the fun, this one will be fun right here, right there. So this one's gonna be the exact same thing, but even lighter. But this one we have more space, so I'm just gonna go follow that branch right there, and just make my little, like that. So it looks like it's the reflection. Because water is like a mirror, it reflects. Oh, like that, pretty good. I can do the same thing for the island, just a little tiny reflection for the island, like that. Just putting the light, the same exact color I use, just putting it light at the bottom right there. So it looks like it's being reflected. All right. Now what? Now we kind of have our image pretty much where we want it. It's looking pretty good. But now we can go ahead and add the finishing touches. So I'm gonna see how dry this thing is. It's pretty dry. I'm gonna avoid the areas that aren't dry. But now I'm gonna go ahead and grab my colored pencils. And if you guys have just been using colored pencil all along, then now is the time when you can kind of just add more detail. Now is just the fun stuff. Now we just add detail. So I'm gonna see where I feel like areas need a little bit more detail. And I'm gonna start with, let's see, I'm gonna start with the mountain closest to us because I feel like it doesn't look as dark as I want it to be. So I'm gonna grab purple, and I'm gonna just add, I'm just gonna go and darken little areas, and maybe, the thing is, I'm just picking spots like where I want it to be a little darker. I don't want to do the whole thing. I just want to kind of, and this is where you guys can just like experiment, you know, and just try things out. So the tip is probably going to be the darkest part right here. So I'm going to go and put a lot of purple down. And you can see I'm just making little shapes the same thing here. Kind of being careful to work around my branches, but if you go over them a little bit, it doesn't really matter at all. So the colored pencil is nice because you can just make it really dark up here, actually. And then I'm like, okay, now I'm just experimenting. Now I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to go over it a little bit with, I don't know, some orange. So I'm just gonna put in little random bits of, I'm just totally going random, like just completely random. Just putting random bits of orange down, not having any thought process to it, barely. Other than I kind of want to just space things out like that. So yeah, that's looking pretty good. And then I can go ahead and add little tiny shadows to my my leaves. I'm gonna do that with red. Just go in and add really tiny little shadows like that. Add little tiny detail, barely noticeable. But I'm gonna just do a couple leaves in there. And then maybe I want to grab, oh yeah, so for the background ones, I'm gonna pretend like there's moss on these mountains. So I'm just gonna do light. Now these ones you want to remember stay light. You want it to be lighter than the one in front of it. So we're gonna do light. Some light moss. Now I'm just gonna, and if an area looks a little too light, you can just make it a little darker. So I'm just kind of loosely coloring in like that. This mountain over here needs a little bit of work. So I'm coloring I'm coloring around my branches, but I'm going right up to them. Like that. Because you want to be seamless about the transition. So I'm just going a little, and I'm also holding the pencil from the edge like that. So I'm just going really light. Like that. Oh yeah, and I actually want to remember to do the same thing down here because it's the reflection. So I'm just gonna go, but you want it to be the reflection, you want it to be lighter. So I'm gonna try and mirror what I just did. Just loosely, kind of like that. Just really loosely. Making it a little darker where it needs to be a little darker. And feel free to pause the video if I'm going too fast. And I need some orange. Let's put some orange down. I used orange on there. And this is barely showing up because it's a little wet. That's okay. That looks pretty good. All right. And the background ones look pretty good, but I think I'm just gonna add a little tiny bit of like gray or something, or maybe some purplish gray. Let's see. I'm gonna get some like, what do we want? You guys can use whatever colors you want. This is just totally experimental. So I'm just gonna add a little touch of pink. A little bit of pink like that. Yeah, there we go. Just to add a little bit of color. You can't really see it too much on the iPad, but I'll take a better picture and I'll send it to you guys. Yeah, this is coming out pretty good. I'm actually pretty proud of it. Yeah, I really hope you guys have watercolors because that would be the most fun way to do this. But if you don't, then it'll still come out really cool. I know it's tough to see, but it's looking good. Maybe I'll put a little pink down here too, just for fun. Alright, and then I see that these need to be a little darker. The reflection needs to be a little darker. So if you see that the reflection's like washed out or something looks washed out, just grab your colored pencil, or if you're using colored pencil already, it's totally fine. Just go in and darken it up a little bit. Just little areas where it can be darker. Like down here. See? The reflection. And then I want to add, it's kind of like a dead landscape. It's not too much life. trees are barely alive. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a kind of dark, like a grayish, saddish looking plant. Maybe a little green. I'll add a little green, it's okay. There's a little bit of life here. So if you add a little lighter green, it'll... But again, you guys don't have to put the islands here. You guys can play around with it and put them in wherever you want. Like that. Beautiful, beautiful. Perfect. All right, and what do I want to do now? I think we need a really light sun. And for the sun, I'm gonna use this kind of dark yellow. And I feel like putting the sun like right there. So the low, subtle, little sun. Maybe barely visible. We don't want a bright sun because obviously this is not a very bright landscape. Little sun like that. Grab a little orange, put a little ring of orange around it. Which you can't even see, which is fine. We don't really need to do that. All right, and then I'm gonna think, what else do I want? I probably want some life, some wildlife real quick, just to like make it a little more vibrant. So I'm gonna grab my pencil. Let's add some light, little birds here. I'm gonna scatter them. Put some smaller ones, some bigger ones. Yeah, maybe some more birds over here. It's looking pretty good. If you want to be super extra fancy, which you guys do, right? You can grab, where's my white? With, you'll have to do this with colored pencil though, because there's no white watercolor. So you can grab, I don't know if this will work. I'm just trying it out. It does not work. All right, well, my idea is if you have maybe like a white paint, go over, have some areas where like there's little bits of reflective light on the water. Actually, if we want to be extra fancy, which we do, grab yellow or orange, light or bright orange, and just put a little bit that's kind of spilling off the mountain like that. Like it's being hit by the light of the sun. Just like a little, it's coming off of the, even smudge it. It's coming off of the, it's glowing, like the mountain's glowing. You want it to make it look like it's glowing. So I'm doing it around the mountain almost, like hovering over it, like that. Smudge it a little bit. I don't know, I can't really think of what else to add. I think it looks pretty good. If you guys wanna, oh yeah, we would have to add, always remember the reflection. The sun's right here, it's gotta reflect right here. And this is gonna be lighter, but it's still gonna have a reflection like that. Cool, I think it's looking pretty good. Yeah, that's a finished piece, that's a finished painting. I mean, if you want to be fancy and sign it right here, bottom right or bottom left or top, go ahead and do that. I hope I see you guys soon. And if not, then just keep making art and hopefully everyone's staying healthy and safe. So I will see you guys soon. And that's it for today. Bye.